Welcome to Beyond Rockets. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Clark Dunn and I'm your host. Get ready to enjoy some awesome conversations from Huntsville locals about cool work they are doing right here in the Rocket City. You can connect with us on social media at Beyond Rockets, and if you're interested in doing a podcast yourself, I'd love to hear from you. You can visit my website, beyondrockets.com today, or connect with me on LinkedIn at Clark Dunn. Sit back and enjoy this episode of Beyond Rockets.
Everything I liked except the way she talked to me every day.
This episode is sponsored by Yellowhammer Brewing. Yellowhammer is a local craft brewery serving Huntsville for the past 14 years. They are known for their premium craft beers like their T-Minus and Rebellion, but what you might not know is they also offer spirits, wine, seltzers, and non-alcoholic drinks. Next time you stop by their location, try one of their seasonal cocktails made with the Gemini Bourbon or the Yellowhammer Vodka, or try this year's big hit Pineapple Punch Seltzer. You can find out more information about Yellowhammer Brewery by visiting their website, yellowhammerbrewery.com, or visiting their tap room located at Campus 805. Welcome back to the Beyond Rockets podcast. Today I have the opportunity to sit down with Mayor Tommy Battle. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot we can talk about, but to kind of get us started, talk a little bit about your background. I know you're originally from the Birmingham area and then moved up here in about 1980. Talk a little bit about going that. I think you pursued a degree in business at the University of Alabama.
I did. I grew up in Birmingham, went to the University of Alabama, got a business degree there. And when I came out of school, my dad had always worked for this restaurant chain, and he had a chance to buy into the restaurant chain and become one of the owners. And he looked at me and said, "Come on in with me. We'll do well." So I came in, thinking I'm just out of school. I'll probably have Wednesday afternoons off and weekends off and everything else. I was in the restaurant business, and really kind of stupid of me because I knew how he worked. And I got in there, and my first place I ran was Britling's on Highlands Avenue. And my off day was Monday, and it was, it was 70 hours a week, and it was beating me to death. The only thing I wanted those first couple of months was to get back to school somehow, find a way to get back to school, because school was a good place to be. But went through that, and it was a great learning ground. I mean, if you want to learn business, go in the restaurant business.
For sure.
And you learned how to be the HR manager, the PR manager, the cook, the bottle washer, a little bit of everything. And when they finally made the decision they were going to sell off all the units in the chain, and I had the opportunity to buy the one in Huntsville. And I've been to Huntsville a few times. I had some cousins up here and everything else, but never really delved into it a whole lot. But I came up here with a business opportunity, and I was 24 years old, and I had told my dad, I said, "Dad, I don't need to do this. I mean, gosh, I don't need to be $200,000 in debt to start off with." And he said, "Son," he looked at me, and one of the wisest things anybody ever said, he said, "Son, what have you got to lose?" He said, "Nobody wants your clothes. They don't fit anybody else. Nobody wants your car. It's all beat up. Nobody wants your furniture because it's brick blocks and shellac boards." He said, "You don't have anything to lose." And I kind of got finished with that weekend after he had told me that, and I thought, he's right. I didn't have anything to lose. So ended up coming to Huntsville first day in July 4th of 1980, and planned on being here 2-3 years, and 40-something years later, I'm still here.
Wow, yeah. And that, and as you came here to Huntsville, real estate was kind of that. You started getting into the real estate market as well, and started working with real estate. Talk a little bit about that transition into real estate, and maybe some of the projects that you were a part of here in Huntsville.
Well, I started off I ran for mayor in 1988, and ran really hard, got in the runoff, but when it got to the runoff, I came in second. Second means that the people elected you go back to the private sector. So I ended up going back to the private sector, and I knew I needed to get out of the restaurant business. I mean, it was a 24/7 job. I had children. I had obligations, other obligations. And so I got in the real estate business, and it was a great business because you could see something build, you could build it up, you could build it up into something. Some of them you would sell and then move on to the other, but some of them you would keep as an investment and work on. And we ended up kind of in a niche of warehouse. Warehouse isn't real sexy, but it pays the bills. And, if you can keep warehouse long enough that it pays the bills and pays off debt and mortgage, then you can make a little bit of money out of them. And that's what we did. We had a little group. We were partners with. I was always like a third partner, and I was the managing partner in most of them. And so we would, either build buildings or buy buildings and lease them out and keep them leased out. And it was a great way to be involved. And I did that and a couple other retail businesses and things, and found a way to keep myself busy at least.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that 1988 first running for mayor. What sort of experiences? What was that experience like? I think you were on city council before, and you stepped down to run for mayor. What was that experience like, and what are some of the lessons that you learned running for mayor in 1988?
That was a great, let's say, character builder there. I was 32 years old running for mayor of Huntsville, and it was a great experience of going out and meeting people in the community and getting to know, you already thought you knew a lot about the community or knew a lot of people, but running for mayor, I got to step in every section of the town, and it was a great process, a great thing to go through. I never would, even know if I knew that we weren't going to win, I'd do it again, because of the friendships that you made and the people that you met and the things that you were able to espouse, the ideas that you were able to bring to our community, all of them meant something. And, they might not have happened right then. It might have taken 20 years to put them in place. But, being able to throw out ideas and be ready to go was really kind of special. Afterwards, I came out and, as I said, number two, I went back to the private sector. And as I went back to the private sector, it was kind of nice because I had time to do some of the things that I always wanted to do. I coached my son in basketball and was able to work at church and be on part of administrative council and teach disciple Bible study and do things that I never would have had time to do if I'd been elected a mayor. Steve Hettinger was the one who was elected mayor and who beat me in the runoff. And I always look at Steve and always think, I need to thank him. Thank him for coming in, stepping in, and saving me from me, I guess is what it was. Those were, those 20 years, I call them the 20 years outside the fishbowl. When you're in office, you're kind of in a fishbowl. But the 20 years outside the fishbowl were great years. Got to do a lot of things, have a lot of fun, be on barbecue teams, play tennis a lot, and be on tennis teams and go for state championships and do things like that. Things I never would have had time to do if I had been mayor. So let's say it was a rounding experience to give me a lot of experiences that I could bring to the office later, 20 years later. And as I brought those experiences, it was able to maybe affect what we could do and how we could do things and what was important to do.
Yeah, and then after that 20 years, you ended up running in 2008. And I think you beat Loretta Spencer. Yeah. Talk a little bit about running for mayor again, deciding that it was time to
we had been through leadership class. Okay. The Huntsville leadership class, and I've been through it. And we'd gone around to places. You spend a whole year. You go around to place after place after place, and you spend one week, one 2-day period each month for 8 months. And we went around, and we kept thinking about, man, this is great. Our city was good. It was a good city. We were doing good things, but we're doing these good things, but it seems like we could do something a little bit better. And we said, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And we all kind of talked about it as we went through. There's 60 of us in the class, and we talked about what could be done to make our city better. And towards the end of it, finally it went from what can be done is to who needs to do it. And we started having those questions about who was going to step up and who was going to take the lead. And we had several people out of that class who ended up running for office, either county commission or city council. It was kind of how we can help our local community. And as we did that, we came up with some ideas. And finally, I'd run for mayor before. I decided that it was my turn to step up to do some things that would maybe be very special for our community, and how we could get our community on track to continue to grow, continue to prosper, continue to provide jobs. And it was really it was not an easy decision because things were good. Life was good, you know. And
Can't play tennis as
Mrs. Battle was not real happy about it when we first started off here with it. But the call and the yearning to do something like what we've been able to do in the last 16 years is something that, you know, you can look back on and say, hey, maybe I had a hand in this happening or that happening, and in making our community a better place.
And was the process of running for mayor in 2008 different than the process in 1988, or was sort of the steps in which you took to basically get elected about the same?
I think in the 1988 campaign, you know, I tried to do it all, and you know, and you can't do that in a campaign. You've got to spread out, and you've got to get more and more people involved, more and more people doing things, being involved. The 2008 campaign, we had more of a structure to the campaign. We had a campaign manager, a campaign chairman. We had a finance committee. We had all the kind of things that you have to have to do it, and we set it up. But we also made sure that we went to every segment of the city. We made sure that we were in North Huntsville, South Huntsville, East Huntsville, West Huntsville, in the downtown area, and we wanted to appeal to every section of the city. And it was a close race. I mean, we got into a runoff, and we got in the runoff by something like 286 votes.
Wow.
And once we got in the runoff, it became much easier because if you're an incumbent and you get in a runoff, some people see that you're vulnerable. And you know, the consequential runoff election, I think we won 56-20 to 44 or something like that. So we won it a little bit easier. But it was really important to get out and talk to people. Our slogan back then was one city, one vision. How we could pull our city together, because there was a lot of talk about the city was, you know, there was one section who prospered, one section who didn't, one section did this, one section did that, and we didn't have a unified city at that point. And that was one of the first things that we said when we came in. We need to unify this city. We need to find a way to get us all together.
Yeah, and then thinking. I mean, I guess you just started your 5th consecutive term.
Yes.
Take me back to that first term, and I would assume that some of the projects that you were working on in that first term have come to fruition in your 3rd or 4th term. Talk a little bit about some of those projects and kind of how the planning for your first term has kind of led and paved the way for your 5th consecutive term.
Yeah. You know, you never get finished working on roads. Roads is infrastructure. Infrastructure, roads, the ability to grow your city, to make sure you have a growth corridor where people will want to live and new neighborhoods pop up. You know, you never get finished with that. So what we started in the first term, you know, carried all the way through the 5th term. How to build an industrial base, and that was one of the most important things. You know, when in Huntsville we had a you know, entry level base of jobs that were, you know, that were good jobs, but you know, they really weren't the kind of jobs you could, you know, you could support a family on and do some of the things you needed. Then we had some great jobs on the higher end if you wanted to be a rocket engineer or a scientist or something like that. You know, there were some great jobs on that side, but right in the middle, that middle section of jobs is what we failed to have. And as we talked to people, and they're first coming in 2008, they said, you know, we don't feel like we're part of Huntsville's success. And this was many of the people in the lower social economic areas of Huntsville. You know, we don't feel like we participate. We don't have the jobs. We don't have the new homes. We don't have this, that, and other. And that was something that was a telltale sign to us. I mean, we had 300 jobs open up at Toyota Motor Manufacturing, and something like 10,000 people applied.
Wow.
And so it tells you had a lot of people who were underemployed. So we quickly decided to change some of our strategies in recruiting industry. And our strategy before was to recruit research park, high-tech groups, and everything else. And we started recruiting advanced manufacturing. Started off with Remington, and went to Polaris, GE Aviation, Aerojet Rocketdyne, Blue Origin, finally Mazda, Toyota, Amazon, out in the Greenbrier corridor. And when we brought those in, we brought in something like 35,000 advanced manufacturing jobs. And those 35,000 jobs filled our middle gap. So a lot of the people who were sitting here on the entry level, they moved up into that middle income area and could make a decent living coming straight out of high school. You could make $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 if you wanted to work some overtime in some of these job markets. And so all of a sudden, we quit hearing those same calls of we're not able to participate, we're not getting the jobs, we can't be part of Huntsville's prosperity. You didn't hear that as much anymore. And you heard that, our biggest thing that we heard was we've got jobs and we need people to fill them. And so that was it's an enviable position to be in when you have more jobs than you have people to fill them. So we were, quickly, we were transforming as a city, but as we transformed as a city, it made it where we could be that one city, one vision, where we could all work together to make sure that our areas were great areas that had some of the common elements that you have to a community, had good schools, had good community centers, had good retail and new homes being built and everything else. And you put all those together and you've got communities that all tie together to make your city, but each part of the city feels like they're part of Huntsville's success. And I think that's what we started on in 2008 was to, we started with one city, one vision. And over that 16 years, it was to fulfill that goal of one city, one vision.
Yeah, and with that kind of changing that narrative that people were, used to, is like if kind of being able to have that advanced manufacturing job to kind of, bring their family up. With that also comes creating an infrastructure around them that can support and teach them the skills to do those jobs. How has Huntsville as a whole tried to better prepare maybe even high school students so that if college isn't the thing for them, that they can get this advanced manufacturing skill and go into working at Toyota or wherever it might be?
In 2008 when I came in, the whole focus was on everybody's got to go to college. Everybody's got to go to 4-year college. Everybody's got to go to 2-year college. Everybody's needs that higher plane of education. And quickly working with the schools, and this was the schools doing it themselves. I mean, we were an impetus. We pushed a little bit, but they actually did it. They started really emphasizing their tech programs. They started really emphasizing the idea that you can come out of high school and you can get a good job and you can make a great living. And it was able to put all those pieces together that that you could see the fruition of where we had started, where we were, and then where we were going to be. And as you did that, we found that education is key. You've got to have good education, but your education can't be an education that is halfway done in 12th grade and then you're going to go ahead and finish it up in colleges. It's an education that has pivotal stop and start points. You stop and start at 12th grade, but you could start again for more education if you wanted to go to a 4-year college, 2-year college, or you could go on. You had the education that was that came through trade schools and some of the other basic courses that would let you go out into the workforce and start your career at that point. So you could do both.
Yeah, and it's incredible just to see how that the landscape of advanced manufacturing and getting outside of, like, yes, we're still a rocket city and we still do a bunch of Department of Defense related stuff, but there is so much more industries here. The growth of biotech with Hudson Alpha and their expansions over in Research Park is evident. Kind of looking at your journey through being mayor, in 2018 you decided to run for governor and ended up losing to Kay Ivey. Talk a little bit about that experience and maybe how it differed than what it was like running for mayor.
Listen, I would never go back and undo that situation. That was a great learning experience for me, but it was also a great experience for me because we made friends from all over the state, from down in the Wiregrass and Dothan to Baldwin County, Mobile. You caught up with old friends who you knew throughout the state, but also you got to make new friends. And it was a great process. We talked about some things that really need to happen in this state. We talked about 6-laning I-65, which that mantra's been kind of picked up by Will Ainsworth right now. We talked about the idea of pushing our industry the same way that we've been able to add jobs and industry to Huntsville, how we could do it through the whole state, and how the whole state could help themselves by filling in that middle income gap. We talked about how to push and encourage education throughout the state. There's some areas, when you get up into the North Alabama area, we really work very hard on education, and we work hard to make sure that education, especially the public K through 12 education, is a good education that can take someone onto the workforce or can springboard them into a 4-year college system so that they can go for some of the master's degrees later on or something. And and there's certain other areas of the state that you don't see that. They don't support their schools with the proper property tax. They don't support their schools with public support of their schools. And so, that was one of the talking points that we had as we went around. Education is key. Education is what makes you grow, and that's what we wanted to keep moving forward for the state of Alabama. Came up a little bit short. Came in second again, the second in the Republican primary, and but it was a great experience. I'm glad that we did it. I would, if somebody said you could go back and get that time back of your life, I said no. I would say no. Because we were able to bring to the table some issues that really needed to be talked about. And these are issues I think that others pick up and go with, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, and it's incredible just to I've had been fortunate to talk with a variety of people all throughout the state on podcasts like this. Yeah. And it's interesting just how much, the disconnect sometimes with, what's happening in Mobile with what's happening up here. And innovation is kind of centered all around the state of Alabama. I think with the Wiregrass area, Hudson Alpha has a huge presence there now, in Dothan and all that. As you've seen Huntsville grow, could you imagine that as we're sitting in 2025, that in 1980, when you first came, you said 3 or 4 years? Yeah. Has there been a moment or a thing that's happened in Huntsville that you've been kind of in awe of I can't believe this actually was able to work, or that this actually came to fruition?
I think the magic portion of Huntsville, everybody comes here. We have lots of different cities come here and they benchmark against us because they want to see what you've done that they could do, and we've done that with other communities. I mean, none of us are above stealing a good idea, and so we've been through that period of how do you get better? What do you do? What's the most important thing for us to do? But as we've worked through all those processes, we've been able to see ourselves continue to get better. You talk about innovation throughout the state. You go down to Mobile, and they got the shipyards down there where they're building some of the most modern new destroyers in the world. You go over to Dothan, they've got an osteopathic school, which is providing doctors for people for the rural areas throughout the state, and plus they've got the Hudson Alpha connection now. You go to Montgomery, and they've got the Air Force's cyber school sitting right there. You go to Birmingham, and they've got innovation happening. They've got Southern Research. They've got UAB. They've got a medical presence that is very enviable to everybody throughout the nation. And you go through this whole state, and you look at how much innovation there is, and it's a great foundation block to be able to build upon. You build upon that foundation block, and people all of a sudden are in those industries, and then you have the spinoff of the industries and the job multipliers out of the industry. They say one of those industry jobs is worth 5 other jobs because you need 5 other people, somebody to build their house when they want to buy a house, somebody to work in the drugstore, someone to work in the grocery store, someone to do all the things that are necessary for life, and it's a multiplier effect. So what we're able to see is as we get more innovative, we can provide 1,000 jobs. It's also 5,000 more jobs that are in the support side of that. So that's important to us.
And I think as we now kind of transition to what's happening now in Huntsville, I think a big push that I've seen of late is this mixed use developments.
Yeah.
Is revitalizing areas of town that maybe have closed down. Hollywood 18 area becoming the Stadium Commons, Old Madison Square Mall becoming Mid-City, and even the old Coca-Cola distribution center becoming Front Row. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the interest and the desire for the city to have these mixed-use developments and what it's laying the groundwork for the city moving forward.
The interesting thing about that is that we're able to make ourselves grow. We're able to become little communities and tie all of our little communities in to make the big community, which is the city of Huntsville. We call it urban development, places where you can live, work, play. We started our first one at Twickenham over here, where Publix is, and a few more retail stores, and there's apartments, and then there's office building there. And we saw that there was an opportunity there to make our community grow, but it hadn't been done before. So because it hadn't been done before, it was a risk to the developers who were investing a lot of money in these projects. It was a risk. So we came in as a city and we put in, I want to say something like $8.3 million into a parking garage there. So because that's one of the things that you always have when you have a dense urban development, you need parking, and parking garages are needed in that. So we put a parking garage in there, and it was about $8 million. And Huntsville Hospital bought out part of the parking garage and built a couple of extra floors so that they would have it for the hospital there. And we started adding up, how much are we going to have in sales tax coming out of this, restaurant taxes and business licenses and hotel motel fees coming out of there, and what was the sales tax return going to be off of the Publix. And when we came out with it, we ended up with paying back the $8 million that was put in that garage in 2.3 years.
Wow.
And we said, wow, that is a good deal. And it was such a success that the next urban development that happened was the Avenue. And the Avenue came in and said, we don't need you to build us a garage for $8 million. You've got some land. Let us do a long-term land lease with you, and we'll build a project a lot like what Twickenham is, but it'll have some more nuances to it. And they did that. And after that, Bell Cudson came in. After that, we had we had City Center come in, and as we had each one of those come in, we could see that this is a model on how to put together a city. Little communities that tie together. The downtown communities tied together with Big Spring Park. They tied together with the YMCA. They tied together with the downtown square. They tied together with the restaurants that were locating in the downtown area. But all of them tie together to be the downtown hub. And we had such success with that, we said, well, what will that do to us if we want to go out and try to do something out towards Research Park with that? Perfect modeling area to do it with. And we had an old mall out there, which was on the list of deadmalls.com, Old Madison Square Mall. And I didn't even know there was a list of deadmalls.com at the time, but I found out. And we said, we've got to do something with this, because this is almost retail center in the middle of between Huntsville, Monrovia, Madison. This is retail center, dead retail center, and we've got to make sure we do something with this. So we came in and did an urban renewal plan there, took out the 5 owners that were there, got some partners in there, developmental partners, to work with the city, and they ended up buying the city out. And we were able to put together a bigger version of that urban development, something like 3,000 apartments in there, 60 different restaurants, Trader Joe's in there, the amphitheater in there. And it tied into Research Park east, and so you could work in Research Park. You could walk home to Mid-City. You could live there in Mid-City. You could play there in Mid-City by going to the Orion or maybe Top Golf, or going to get something to eat at Trader Joe's or Salt's or one of the restaurants there. And you could do all that in one little area, but it was a bigger community. And if you go there on Sundays now, they have a makers area where they sell homemade goods and all kinds of goods there. And you go in there, and it's part of a community. And so we made a community. And then we said, what will happen if we do that over where Bridge Street is? And so we added hotels to Bridge Street. We added more apartments to Bridge. We added apartments for the first time to Bridge Street. Bridge Street added Cheesecake Factory and added some others in, and they became their own little small community too. But that community was also part of that whole Research Park West community. So through doing that, we've been able to grow a city. We grow 7,000 people a year. Wow. This year we're gonna right now I think we're at about 245,000 people in the city of Huntsville. When I first came in 1980, I think we were maybe 148,000 people. Wow. So we've had some tremendous growth, and that growth has been because we have built, we have grown, but we've done what we call smart growth. Smart growth gives you an ability to make smaller communities, but tie all those smaller communities into one big community, which turns into a city.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible just to see how like the Twickenham area set sort of the framework of how this could be done. Yeah. And every iteration after has just been a bigger iteration. It's just been bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's incredible just to see that stair-stepper effect. You mentioned a little bit about connecting these districts together and making it traversable. A lot of this new buzz that's happening is with the Sky Bridge.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how this is going to help connect the Low Mill area with the downtown area.
Sure. This is it's kind of exciting to be able to see all this come together, because we're using corridors to connect these communities together. The Holmes Avenue corridor that we're talking about, taking Holmes Avenue, remodeling it, making it a boulevard, take it all the way from 5 Points all the way out to UAH to Research Park, and then you can take it from Research Park into the Arsenal. Those kind of projects are connectors that connect us together. And it's going to be interesting as we go through. We're going to have to connect a lot of places. The Sky Bridge is another example. We have a Rails to Trails walkway or greenway coming in from up at Alabama A&M, coming all the way into the downtown area. Once you hit the downtown area, you'll be able to. We're doing a large drainage project there with the Pinhook Creek, and as we do that large drainage project, the last part of that large drainage project is the Sky Bridge, the bridge over Pinhook Creek. But you come down from Alabama A&M, you come on the Greenway, you come down to the Sky Bridge, you take the Sky Bridge over to the west side of Pinhook Creek. You go all the way down by Pinhook Creek, you can go down to the natatorium, the parks down there. You can go even further and go all the way down, and if you can connect onto the parks, to the Greenway system at Hayes Farm, and go all the way down to the river. Wow, that's a big area that we can have connection to, or connectors for. And as we put all those connectors together, that's just one set of connectors. Holmes Avenue is another set of connectors. As we put all those together, all of a sudden you take these communities that you've put together, and as you connect them, they kind of pull together some, and those communities become the city. And the city is because you have connection one place to the other. I think that's the whole message of the Sky Bridge, is that we're taking the Parkway and the Pinhook Creek, which have always been kind of a barrier to being able to go from one section of town to another. We're taking that out of play, and now you have a bridge that you can go over, and you can use that bridge to connect the West Huntsville area over there, which has now, I think everybody's seen, it's grown. People have been buying houses in there. Who would have ever thought that we could sell a house for $200,000 to $300,000 in West Huntsville 15 years ago? You never would have thought it. But today they're taking those houses and they're remodeling and refurbishing them and everything else, and making a really neat community out of that. And that community is another one of those communities that add together for the whole city.
Yeah, and it's incredible. I mean, as you even go past that Seminole Drive where all that just construction and the Low Mill area is, I mean, even what they've done with Stovehouse and that development and connecting it now with Campus 805 and making that area traversable. I mean, you have these pockets that, I mean, it seems like with the greenways and kind of this initiative that the city has is connecting all these parts together. Yeah. I mean, South Huntsville has a huge Aldersgate Greenway that is just incredible, and that being able to be, you know, one big loop all around South Huntsville is not too far from
coming up to the Moon, and the idea that you can take coming from the Moon Community Center area with Old Grissom High School, catching Alders Creek, going down to the river, catching on to the Greenway that comes back up around through Hazeland, and then coming all the way up to the city and cutting across on the bridge and going all the way up to A&M. I mean, we were in Atlanta recently, and they were talking about their Beltline project, and their Beltline project is, I wanted to say it was 28 miles around. We're going to beat that 28 miles by a lot, and we'll have a circular loop system that will be in that will be second to none. You know, they started the Greenway system or the Beltline system in Atlanta, I want to say something like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and they've still got, you know, 3 or 4 segments to go. We'll be in the same boat. I mean, it won't be something that will happen overnight, but as we, you know, add section by section by section, we'll end up with a Beltline type project around the city of Huntsville that will be second to none.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's incredible just to see the growth as Huntsville. I mean, I'm a Huntsville native, and seeing I feel like the mantra for most people I went to high school with was I'm never going to live in Huntsville. Yeah. I'm going to go somewhere else. And now it's incredible for me in the kind of the position I'm in to show my friends just what cool things you can do here. And I think that's continuing to grow with the music office and having Matt Mandrella in here and just the Orion Amphitheater and really becoming this city that's, like you said, not just this rocket city that was known for the Arsenal, but it transcends a lot of stuff. Looking at it like a day in the life of being mayor of Huntsville, what does that look like for you?
Every day is different. Every day is different. You know, most of the time, I'm an early riser. I get up at 5 in the morning and I go out and do my little exercise and everything else and get back in. You know, usually at work, you know, many mornings start off with a breakfast. So I meet somebody for breakfast at 7 o'clock or, you know, if we're going to have an early meeting this morning, we had a 7:45 meeting here. So grab some breakfast and come on in, and we'll go till 7 or 8 tonight. You know, the good thing is I'm always finished by Hogan's Heroes. I watch Hogan's Heroes at night and then I go to bed. But you know, there's always something to do here, and it's great. Last night was teacher appreciation for all the teachers of the year for each of the schools in Madison County. The night before that was the hospitality industry had their Pineapple Award for awards for people who excelled in the hospitality industry, whether you worked for a hotel or an airline or something else, you know, or a restaurant. And all of that, you know, ties into what makes our community great. You know, every one of them has something that you want to look at and you want to know about, that you can take back and say, hey, there's an actionable item that we can do out of here to make sure that we have better hospitality throughout the city, or there's a better way to recognize our teachers and to do things to make sure that those teachers know they're appreciated because they're the ones on the front line of the education. Mm-hmm. So, you know, every meeting you go to, everything that you do, you come away with something that says we can still do a little bit better. Mm. We've done great. You know, we've got great people doing great jobs, but can we do better? And that's the key to what we always push on is how do we get better?
Mm. And thinking about, you know, as you're beginning your 5th consecutive term, is there been one thing that you've been most excited about that you've seen Huntsville been able to accomplish? I feel like there's probably moments in conversations you had in your first term that you were like, there's no way this is ever going to happen. And then it does. Is there something that stands out among the rest?
You know, and I think it would be 2 things. Number one was the idea that our streets rolled up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the downtown area, and everybody went home, and that was about it. But today, you'll see people out till 10 or 11 tonight, and we had a downtown study group come in a couple of years ago, and they said, you have a very active nightlife. Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights from 10 at night till 2:30 in the morning. And I said, really? Because I go to bed at 9. I said, really? We do? And he said, oh, yeah. And then we talked about it, and what we needed to do to make sure that we kept that going, how to make sure it was a safe environment, that the right kind of things happen there. Those kind of things are the things that you look at and say, wow, we've been able to make a little bit of a difference here. Just the idea that we are able as a community to pull together, to work together, to put together one city, one vision. Being able to do that makes all the difference in the world, because all of a sudden you can look around, and when you need to move forward, you got partners to go with you. Those partners are the people that you've been working with for the past 10, 15 years, trying to make sure that we fulfill our promise of one city, one vision. And as we do that, we all come together to be able to do better things for our city.
Yeah, and I say it often in conversations with people, but Huntsville is a city that's willing to help. You just have to be willing to ask.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people doing some really cool things, and it's easy to kind of be within your own bubble. But if you looking out there, and I think it's been a testament over the last few years of just how much cool and unique things that are going on in this city. Yeah. If you could leave the listener or anyone that's watching with one piece of advice or one thing that you'd want them to know, what would that be?
The most important thing about Huntsville is that anyone can be involved. Anyone can go from going to a leadership class, can go to a community school or citizens advisory commission and go through it. Anybody can be involved, and as you're involved, you get involved so that you can make your hometown better. And I call Huntsville my hometown now, even though I came originally from Birmingham. After 40 some odd years, I think I can call it my hometown. There's a lot of people like you who are lifers here. I call them lifers. Mrs. Battle was a lifer, who are very proud of this city and proud of what they've been able to do. And just as many people are people who come into our community and who have come in from outside, who bring the good things with them that happened in other communities and see some things that may have happened in other communities they don't want to happen here. And they stop those from happening. But everybody's involved. Everybody's part of the process. When we start doing planning, I always tell everybody, we have 245,000 planners in this city, but only about 100 of them have degrees. But everybody wants to be part of what you're doing and understand why you're doing it. And that's the magic of Huntsville, is that everybody is part of it. Everybody's involved.
Yeah, and I think that melting pot of ideas too, as it's continuing to grow, you're able to bring new ideas to the table. Yeah. Things that you never thought Huntsville would be able to do, but they're able to accomplish, and it's been pretty cool to see. We'll have to have you back on the podcast in a couple of years and just see how Huntsville's changed, because I think it's not slowing down anytime soon. But I appreciate you being here today.
Hey, thank you for having us out. And one of the greatest things is that we have a good message to give, so that's fun giving a good message. But being able to tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, the end result, what's going to happen out of that. That's the key to a good government, is being able to do that, and y'all help us do that.
Well, I thoroughly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Rockets. Don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and on YouTube at Beyond Rockets. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Beyond Rockets to stay up to date with new episodes as they are released. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.